client, they'd had an application, a green screen application for basically since the early 80s. And they had several attempts to replace this application with a modern, probably a web-based application or client server even. Unfortunately, they failed miserably several times. So Sapient was brought in with some other partners to work with this client to finally move them off of this green screen application.
Something that would be easier to use, easier to upgrade, basically all around, just something easier.
The main goal of version 1 was purely to turn off this green screen system. That was what they kept hammering away. We just want to turn this thing off. We want to take that current functionality. We want to make it a web-based application. As time progressed, they actually added quite a bit of functionality to it, so it kind of became Green Screen Application Plus from a functionality standpoint. But it was the success of that that led into version 2, where they had several other components of their process that they now wanted to also move into this web-based application. The first part, the V1, was more of a case management system. The core of what this particular organization does. Before, they had several different applications. Many of them were local to different field offices, and they wanted to consolidate them all together, pull them all into one unit, so that everybody across, all officers across the country were using the same application. And that's really where version 2 started, building off of V1, moving into new functionality, as well as expanding some of the stuff that was done in version 1.
So I joined the team, and we, started our usual meetings with the client, and started gathering the requirements. We started getting all these different ideas and concepts, and we started putting them down on paper, along with the visual design. We really saw a completely new way of the client doing their business.
But then we went on into our own kind of cocoon for a little while, and we came up with a pretty drastically changed information architecture navigation structure, just a way for them to view all this data. Because with these new components coming into version 2, the amount of data pretty much tripled from what it was in version 1.
And we thought, what a great idea! We can put all this down, and we'll present this to them. We really felt like we were onto something. And then we had the meeting with the client. We showed them the overhauled design. We showed them all these new concepts and how all this really fit in with their mission and their vision. And we weren't as well received as we thought we were going to be.
I think it was just that it was too much at one point in time. It was too much. It's like opening a fire hose on them, I guess.
They did not react positively at all. They felt it was too much. They felt that their field users were just getting used to version 1 after having used the green screen app for, say, 25 years. And to thrust something onto their users as different as version 2 would be a big mistake. We gave them too much all at once, and they couldn't process it all at once. So next, what we did was to kind of scale back our approach.
So we went back, we did some redesign, we kind of simplified it. In some respects, the simplification actually worked even better than what our original design was, but we kind of had to pull out some functionality of the application that we felt was going to be pretty valuable. But they did end up accepting the simplified design.
Once we had sort of follow-up meetings to version 2, they even began to sort of suggest things that we had suggested in our initial big scope meeting.
So to a certain degree, our final design that we have right now for version 2 is even closer to our original design that they had rejected at the start.
We can pretty much see it from the client now. Just in the last few meetings, we can sort of see the light bulbs going off in their heads in terms of how this application is really going to help their business. And once they started looking at it that way, they started sort of seeing the potential. And that's when they started making the suggestions of, this is how we can incorporate the different pieces of our business. Not only that, they saw that this new visually refreshed design should be the basis of their future products.
and they've started pushing it into other applications or other projects. Many of these other projects have not gone live yet either, but the nice thing is they're trying to take components from what we've come up with, design components, information architecture components, just even functional components in the way we design our forms, our data entry forms. They want other applications to replicate this, other projects that are going forward. And that's good from an organizational standpoint. A lot of their applications now are going to have a similar feel to them. And it all started with what we'd come up with in our own design.
Any new pieces of functionality that go into this application will have to be based on what we did for version 2 of that product. It makes me feel like we've really helped the client, and that's what Sapient is all about. You really can't overwhelm the client. You really can't overwhelm them with all these ideas all at once. As fantastic as they may be, you really have to sort of, step them through the process. You really have to help them along. They're not going to see everything that you see all at once. And in fact, if you try to force feed them, they're not going to react positively. If you can just sort of ease them along, eventually they'll get to that point where they can start to see the broader vision.
But I think the main thing we should have changed is just not present as much as we did at that one point in time. Maybe introduce small design components as we went along, because we knew that this requirements and the development stage was gonna go for several months. So we could have started introducing these components as we felt that they would have made a difference to the client, or that it would have been easier for them to accept it. But it was probably just too much at one time. Scared them right out of their seat, I guess.
I do get the sense that this happens with a lot of the other Sapient projects, where they'll go in, Sapient comes in, we'll really start to not just look at a very specific idea or problem that the client is having, but really have the client look at themselves, sort of really start to look at their mission and their whole vision.
A lot of people would probably be too hesitant to have presented such a drastically, such a drastic difference in design from a version 1 to version 2 application. Many would be afraid that, the rejection would, could adversely affect the relationship with the client. So we weren't afraid to take that risk, because we knew deep down inside that it was by far the best thing for the client. If we feel within our heart that it is going to make a difference for the client and make a difference for their people, then we're definitely going to take that risk.